Audrey Stevens is suing her neighbor, Heather Stevens, for vet bills and pain and suffering after a dog attack.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Hello, Judge. Case 2139, Stevens versus Stevens.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Although your names sound the same, they're spelled differently, and you are clearly not related based upon this case. You live in the same general area.
Yes.
Okay. Could you step up? Tell me your name.
Emily Feringer.
This is your daughter.
Yes.
How long have you been living in your house?
8.5 years.
How old are you?
22.
Tell me what you do.
I work at a bakery right now, and I'm a full-time college student.
Where do you go to school?
Idaho State University.
You were out walking the family dog.
Yes, I
Family
was.
has one dog?
Just one, yeah.
What kind of dog?
It's a miniature schnauzer.
Weighs about 10, 12 pounds?
Yeah, around there, 15-ish.
How old is the dog?
He is 9.
You've had him since he was a puppy.
Yes.
This case has to do with injuries that your dog sustained.
Yes.
And the payment of vet bills by the defendant, who you allege has 2 dogs unleashed that attacked your dog while you were walking.
Correct.
Him.
Just one dog. One dog.
One.
One dog attacked our dog.
You have a pit bull.
Yes, ma'am.
What color?
White and brown.
How old?
She's 5.
Is that the only dog you have?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Tell me what date you were walking the dog that this incident happened.
July 26, 2021.
Time.
Around 8 p.m.
Dark?
No.
Still light out.
Yes, ma'am.
Were you walking in the neighborhood?
I was walking down the sidewalk, and I passed the defendant's house, and I reached the end of the sidewalk.
Your dog's name is what?
Jax?
On a leash?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you always walk the dog on a leash?
We do.
Tell me what happened.
I was walking down the sidewalk, and I reached the end of the sidewalk. I was about to cross the street, and...
Do you have a picture or diagram?
I do. I
of
have
where
a
this
diagram.
happened? May I see it, please? Oh, okay. There it is. Would you go over to the diagram so that you can point directly and I can understand where this happened?
I was standing right here, and I noticed the dog come up on my left side.
On your left side?
Yes.
Did you notice from where the dog came?
It seemed to be out in the street when it approached me.
So it didn't come from the defendant's house, it came from the street?
Yes. It had been on the left-hand side of me. And then the pit bull latched onto my dog on its leg.
What color pit bull?
Brown and white.
Was there any fighting or a scuffle before?
No, ma'am. It just ran up to me, and it latched onto my dog's leg, and it picked my dog up and was yanking it around in the air. And it was very loud, and my dog was squealing a lot and crying out very loudly, so I yanked his leash so that I didn't have to bend down and get hurt myself. And I picked him up, and I ran back.
So you yanked him up by his leash?
I did.
Okay. Did he have what kind of a collar on? A regular collar or one of those harnesses?
We have both, so I'm not sure which one he was wearing at that time, but I believe he was wearing the collar.
Just the collar?
Yes.
So you lifted him up by the collar?
Yes.
Did you see where the dog went?
I do not remember. I think the pit bull ran back into the defendant's household.
But you're not sure?
I'm not sure.
What did you do next?
We took the dog to the animal hospital.
Okay. You can go back now. Stand close to you.
Sorry.
Had you ever seen this dog before?
I have.
Where had you seen the dog before?
I've seen the pit bull in multiple places around the neighborhood. I've seen it across...
That same dog?
Yes. I've seen it across the street in that across the street neighbor's yard, and I've also seen it in my yard, and it's also been next to my chain link fence before.
Did you or you, Ms. Stevens, ever have a conversation with the defendant about the dog being unleashed?
I have not spoken to her at all.
For how long have you seen her unleashed dog out and about?
Probably about 10 times.
Have you ever said anything to your mother about seeing this dog outside?
I have.
Okay. I'm listening.
Yes, ma'am. May I show you on the
Absolutely.
On the diagram? Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay. First of all.
No, don't tell me first of all.
Okay.
Were you there at approximately
Yes.
8 p.m.
Yes,
on
I
July 26th?
Correct, I was.
Okay, where were you? Show me where you were.
I was right here. I was loading a fridge into my home. I had my dog right here in the middle of the driveway, chained to the fence, okay? She came from across the crosswalk here, because I have a witness as well to show. She came from the crosswalk with her dog in front of her. She came across right into my driveway. The dog went into my driveway, and my dog Went up to her and they began to fight.
You're going like this.
Yes.
You're going like this. I don't want you to go like this.
Okay.
So your dog was on a chain.
Yes, ma'am.
A chain that extended almost to the end of your driveway.
Correct.
So show me exactly with your finger.
Okay, yes.
Where you say this confrontation between the pit bull and the schnauzer took place.
Right here, ma'am.
Well, you're pointing to about a foot. Well, now you keep moving your finger.
Right here.
You know that I don't believe that your dog hasn't been out and about in the neighborhood, unleashed.
No, ma'am. I don't let my dog off the leash.
We do have pictures of the dog as well, if you'd like to see those.
Oh, do you?
We
Yes.
You mean out and about?
Yes.
Oh, I'd like to see that.
Audrey Stevens claims her neighbor, Heather Stevens, owes for vet bills after her dog was injured by Heather's pit bull.
Now you're moving your finger. So you're saying it's right at the end of your driveway.
Yes, ma'am.
Just a second. It was up further 5 seconds ago.
Okay,
Now
my
you
dog was right here,
yeah,
ma'am.
Yeah.
The fight
Okay.
occurred right here.
Well, now your finger is at a different place, madam. I'm
Well-
just letting you know your finger moves up the driveway.
Right, I'd say right here.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
You know that I don't believe that.
I know you don't believe that,
You,
Your Honor, but
you
that's
know,
what happened.
you know that I don't believe that your dog hasn't been out and about in the neighborhood. Do you know that I don't believe that? I don't think she's lying to me that your dog's been out and about in the neighborhood. Unleashed.
No, ma'am. I don't let my dog off the leash.
We do have pictures of the dog as well, if you'd like to see those.
Oh, do you?
We
Yes.
You mean out and about?
Yes.
Oh, I'd like to see that.
And this is after.
Shh, shh.
Sorry.
I don't care before or after.
Yeah.
She just said, I don't let my dog go out without a leash.
Well, this is the injury.
Ms. Stevens, these pictures belie the fact that your dog is out, leashed only. Do you want to see the photograph?
Yes, ma'am, please. Yes, Your Honor, I do see that, but I was outside with my dog at that time.
I don't care whether you were outside with your dog or not. You said your dog is never out without a leash. That's not true. That's not true. Were you a witness to this?
Yes, ma'am.
Be very careful. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me your name.
My name is Karen Brennan.
Are you a neighbor?
No, I am a friend
A friend of whose?
of Heather Stevens.
Go ahead.
Well, on that day,
On what date?
on July 26, I was helping Heather with the fridge.
With
and
what?
With the refrigerator. And I was approaching the driveway,
Just a second. You were helping her with the refrigerator doing what?
bringing the dolly out so it can be moved
Bringing the dolly out from where?
from the side of the house.
And?
And I looked over and I saw the little dog and it caught
You
my eye.
saw what?
The little dog. And it caught my eye because every time before, anytime I would put the dog out, Miss Stevens' dog, that little dog, if it was in the backyard, would continually bark at.
Just a second. Did you put the dog out that day?
No, I did not that day. But I recognized
So
the
you
dog.
did not put the dog out
No,
that day?
not that day.
Okay. What time did you get to Miss Stevens' house?
Mid-afternoon.
What's her dog's name?
Lily,
Was Lily chained to the fence all afternoon?
when we were,
Was Lily chained to the fence all afternoon? That's either a yes or a no when you were there. That's either a yes or a no. Was Lily chained to the fence all afternoon when you were there? You said you got there mid-afternoon. This happened at 8 o'clock. Was the dog chained to the fence all the time you were there? Yes or a no? Or I don't know. No.
No.
Where was the dog?
in the backyard
Until what time?
until around 7-ish or so. I don't know the exact time, but it was mid-evening.
Okay. And what happened at that time when the dog was moved from the backyard outside of the backyard? Who moved the dog?
We went to go get the refrigerator.
No. Who moved the dog?
Heather did.
She took the dog from the backyard.
Yes.
Just a second. To the backyard to the driveway, just to the driveway, because that's where she pointed out that the dog was chained to the driveway fence.
Yes. When we came back we went to go get the refrigerator.
Just a minute. Well, you didn't tell me, so you left the house.
Yes.
What time did you leave the house?
Mid-afternoon. It was like
What time?
approximately 4 or 5.
Okay, and the dog at that time was where?
With us in the vehicle.
So you had the dog in the car, so the dog was in the backyard,
Yes,
and then from the backyard, the dog went with you in the car.
correct.
And then what?
And then we picked up the refrigerator, and we came back, and then she had chained her.
Okay, so from the car, the dog went to the fence, which is chained sort of midway up the fence, according to the defendant, sort of midway up the driveway.
Correct.
Is where she chained the dog.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Then where did you go?
And then I went to go get the dolly and bring it around so we could get the fridge
Okay,
out.
and where did Miss Stevens stay?
She was in the driveway.
And it was when you were coming out of the backyard that you saw Miss Stevens in the driveway?
Yes.
And saw the little dog?
Yes.
She was in the driveway. Was she next to the dog? Go over there and point out where she was, would you, in the driveway?
She was,
She, Miss Stevens,
that was Stevens, yes.
your friend,
Yes.
was right in the middle of the driveway near where the dog was chained.
Yes.
And show me where the defendant's house is, because you had been in the house earlier that day. Point on that diagram where the house is,
Right here.
where it says defendant.
Yes.
That's the whole house. And where's the front door?
Right here.
Up there. And where's the porch on the front door?
Right there.
Okay. Now, that's not where she was. She was in the driveway.
Correct.
Okay, now go back. Now I'm going to read to you what your friend Miss Stevens wrote and swore to in her answer. I was standing on the porch, maneuvering the fridge inside, and I saw a little dog sniffing around and walking up my driveway. She said she was on the porch.
Well, she was back.
Chip. That's where she said she was, on the porch. I know the plaintiff's dog is a barker since it has come to the backside of my property and barked at my dog through the fence. The dog walked all the way up the driveway to where my dog was. Now, you want to think back? Miss Stevens says she was standing on the porch. You were very certain she was standing mid-driveway right near her dog. Which one is it?
Well, we were trying to maneuver the fridge, so we were back and forth.
No. Which one is it? Was she on the porch, which is all the way at the other end?
Yes.
Or was she mid-driveway?
Mid-driveway.
She was mid-driveway. So
Yeah.
Miss Stevens lied when she said she was on the porch. I didn't look at a police report. I listened
It's
to
on
your.
one side.
I listened to you.
Yes, Your Honor.
And I listened to your witness.
Yes.
And you and the witness that you brought told two divergent stories, two totally different stories. She was your witness.
Audrey Stevens is accusing her neighbor, Heather Stevens, of losing control of her pit bull. Heather claims Audrey's dog ran onto her property.
So Miss Stevens lied when she said she was on the porch. That's what she says in her answer. I was on the porch when this happened. You understand? Do you understand?
Yes.
Sit. Can I see your vet bills, please?
Your Honor, I have a video of my dog. Can we present the video that I have brought?
You mean for that day?
Yes, ma'am.
For that-
No, not for that day. No, not for that day, but just to show you that my dog is not vicious.
Oh, what?
That she likes to play with little dogs.
Clearly not on this day. She didn't like to play with other dogs.
That dog is constantly barking at my dog in the backyard, and that's the only. My dog loves dogs. I have obedient records.
Miss Stevens.
Yes.
I want you to understand something.
Yes, ma'am.
Whether the Schnauzer is a barker or not a barker, I told you, I didn't believe you when you told me that her dog was off leash. I didn't believe that. Either you or your witness lied. I don't know which one. So I'm going to have to assume it was your witness. Do you want me to assume it was your witness or you? So one of you lied. She says you were in a totally different place. She was coming out from the backyard. That's where she was. She had gone to get the dolly. You said you were maneuvering the refrigerator up on the porch.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, who is telling me the truth? You want to tell me?
It was a very hectic day.
It was a very hectic day.
Yeah.
And I have photographs of your dog, despite the fact that you tell me that your dog is never off leash, always on leash. I have 3 photographs taken 3 different times of your dog being off leash. Now, there's no question that your dog caused the injuries to the dog.
This has been going on for over a year in court. They dismissed it in criminal court. and there's a reason why they dismissed it.
Just a second.
Yes,
You're
ma'am.
going to try to tell me why they dismissed the case in criminal court? You have a document? I mean, I understand that they filed a criminal case against you.
There was a criminal case that was dismissed, Your Honor.
That's okay. That has nothing to do with this civil proceeding. You know, somebody may not want to put you in jail because you let your pit bull roam around without a leash. Somebody may not want to put you in jail, but you are clearly responsible for this dog's injuries. You are. If you have a pit bull, and pit bulls can be dangerous dogs, they can turn on a dime and cause serious injury. Pit bull lovers, I don't want to hear from you. I've been going through it for 25 years. Some of them are nice. Some of them are not nice. But when they're not nice and they turn, they have configurations that can cause a great deal of injury. One killed a woman who was babysitting for it.
I understand, Your Honor.
So you do understand.
I believe, may I say something? I believe that a dog is how it was raised, okay? I've raised that dog from a baby. She's never been mean like that. That dog that lives next door, which is Miss Stevens' dog, yaps at my dog every single day. She goes outside, yaps, 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 yaps at her.
So what you're telling me is your dog, so if what you're telling me is that your dog had the right to be aggravated because the dog yaps at her all the time, that's not a reason to let any dog, but especially a dog that has potential to cause injury, out without a leash. And you do that regularly, and you can't do that.
Your Honor, can I also add that I did have a brief interaction with Miss Stevens on the day that it occurred, and it seemed like she did come out of the street with the dog. I don't believe she was in the driveway. She offered help for me.
She did?
Yes, before I went home.
And
where was
not
she?
to interrupt, but we also have video of her acknowledging fault with the officer's body cam video.
What is that?
They have a body cam on when he was talking to her when she said she's really sorry and she's going to pay the vet bill.
Oh, may I see that, please?
I was getting ready to take her for a walk. We were moving in a fridge.
Oh, okay.
And she jumped out of the car when she seen that little dog, because I was getting ready to get in the car and
Gotcha.
right on the corner here.
Okay. So were they just across the street then?
No, they were right here.
They were just right here on the sidewalk. Okay.
I'm going to pay the bill, I know, and whatever I got to do.
Yeah, so she's down at the clinic now.
It was a bite on her, on the shoulder, I think.
On the shoulder?
Yeah.
Okay.
And she was just protecting me. 'Cause
Sure.
that's all. And I'll pay the bill.
Now you're responsible.
And I want to
for, so-
apologize.
Sure.
I feel bad. I do feel bad about it. I do love dogs. I'm a dog lover. And I do feel bad. And I believe she just said, the defendant just said that she was in the street when that happened. It was in my driveway that happened, Your Honor. I'm just saying, we want to be honest.
Was your dog on a chain?
My dog was on a chain, Your Honor. Another thing, I never got my side of the story added to that at all. It was all one-sided. The whole police report was one-sided, Your Honor.
I didn't look at a police report,
I have
madam.
one right here.
Just a second. I didn't look at a police report. I listened
It's
to
all one-sided.
I listened to you.
Yes, Your Honor.
And I listened to your witness.
Yes.
And you and the witness that you brought told two divergent stories, two totally different stories. She was your witness.
Yes.
Easily confused, but she was your witness. And you should have prepared her better, consistent with what your answer was. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor. I wasn't trying to...
Very, very good. Okay. Pain and suffering, unfortunately, is not yours. If you had had injury to yourself, and I think that the law is a little crazy there, but we can gauge pain and suffering for an animal. Anyway, your vet bills were $435.
Your Honor, we just added that just because,
I understand.
Blatant disregard and the dog's still out all the time.
Oh, no, excuse me. The total with tax was $441. Judgment for the plaintiff. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This court is adjourned.
It's been a struggle just because of how long it's been going on.
It was a crazy day.
The dog almost got to our dog's leg bone and broke it.
Because the dog is always japping at my dog.
It was pretty scary.
So it surprised me that happened.
He was bleeding and everything.
She's not vicious whatsoever.
We ran him up to the hospital.
The animal control never get in my house.
I had a feeling that Judy would see right through her, so.
I love dogs, and I felt sorry for the little dog.
I'm happy about the settlement and how we got our money.
I'm not even going to get on my soapbox with regard to dogs that are potentially dangerous. There's no question that this lady has a dog that she's had from a puppy, and the dog has never caused her any difficulty, but there's also no question that she lets that dog out without a leash.
I mean, they had proof of different occasions of the dog out and about.
After this
after
happened.
this incident.
After this incident.
So you can, I think that's also a great lesson, that you can feel bad and be an animal lover and want to take care of the bill. But if you don't take any subsequent remedial measures to fix your bad behavior that caused this great deal of injury, then I don't really believe you that you feel sorry or that you're a dog lover. Because,
well, that's an interesting perspective.
Yeah, I mean, you knew what you had to do to ensure the safety of the dogs and other people in your neighborhood, and you chose not to do that. So
after it had already had an incident.
Exactly.
Albert Lee is suing pilot instructor Ed Meyer for damage resulting from Ed moving his plane.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Case 2145, Lee versus Meyer.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Lee, you are an amateur pilot?
Yes, I was yes.
And you owned your own plane?
I bought it to train in, yes.
When did you purchase the plane?
In, I believe, April of 2021.
Did you buy it new or used?
I bought it used.
What kind of plane is it?
It's a Cirrus SR-22, 2010 type Golf.
What did you pay for it?
I paid $420,000 for it, I believe.
Is there a mortgage on the...
Yes, there is.
How much?
It's $2,204 per month.
You paid $425,000 for the plane?
Yeah, I put a down payment on it. The outstanding balance is $347,000. The payment per month is $2,022.
I don't need the payment per month. I just wanted to know what you paid for it and how much you put into the plane.
Yes.
The defendant is a pilot, licensed pilot, and he was giving you some training on the plane.
Certified flight instructor, yes.
It is your claim that at some point, you'll tell me when, that the defendant was operating the plane by himself. You weren't there, and he was moving it from one part of the FBO to another part, and he hit a cone and caused substantial damage to the propeller and the engine. And while you had your insurance did cover some of it, according to you, it did not cover all of the expenses, and you want Mr. Meyer to be responsible for that. So it's a simple question. Mr. Meyer, do you remember the date that you were operating the plane when Mr. Lee was not there?
Yes.
What date?
It was in April sometime.
April of 2022?
Correct.
Do you remember the date, Mr. Lee?
Yes.
What date?
It's April 22nd.
Would that sound right?
Yes.
Okay. And from what I read in the papers, Mr. Meyer had in fact taken you out, but then the weather got bad. You decided that you would make your way home and that he would get the plane home when the weather was better.
Correct.
And that was on or about April 22nd.
I flew home on a commercial flight the day before on April 21st.
And you stayed with the plane?
Yes.
Now, would you agree, Mr. Meyer, that if in fact you hit an object with the plane, it would be your responsibility?
Yes.
Because it would mean that there was some sort of negligence involved.
Right.
And then there would be the issue of damages. Mr. Lee, you were not present when this incident happened.
I was not.
Not present.
I was not present. I was able.
No, you were not present.
I was not present.
That's the answer. Was this witness present?
He was not present, but he was the one responsible for procuring the evidence on what happened and how the propeller was damaged.
Who does he work for?
He has his own flight school, and he also manages my airplane in terms of the maintenance and the upkeep.
Okay. Could you step up, please? Tell me your last name.
Last name is Williams.
Mr. Williams, were you charged with gathering the evidence to determine what happened to the plane on the 22nd of April?
Yes, I was.
And you're paid a monthly fee by the plaintiff to manage his plane?
That's correct.
Did you retain the defendant as an instructor, or did Mr. Lee?
That was both decided by Mr. Lee and Mr. Myers to fly for him.
But you
He's
did
an
not.
Independent contractor at that.
You did not have anything to do with, as the manager of the plane, you didn't have anything to do with selecting Mr. Meyer.
I did select Mr. Meyer to fly with Albert.
You did?
Yes.
Okay. Because were you the one who introduced him to Mr. Meyer?
That's correct.
When, Mr. Lee, did you start to work with Mr. Meyer?
It was probably a prior flight where we flew to San Francisco for a business meeting I had. After that, I believe it was...
In what month?
Roughly about the same month.
In April?
Yeah, in
so
April.
So you didn't know him for a long time?
No, not very long.
I'm going to get back to you in a minute, Mr. Williams. Prior to the defendant, had anybody else been an instructor for you?
Yes. Clinton was my primary instructor, But I flew with some other instructors as well.
But it wasn't until the month that this incident occurred that you had been connected with the defendant.
Correct.
Okay. Now, sir, how were you advised that the plane that you managed was in an accident?
I received a phone call from Ed saying that there was a problem.
From whom?
From Mr. Myers, that there was a problem with the aircraft after he taxied and did the run-up and returned the aircraft back to Signature in Las Vegas. We notified and contacted a
Did you ask, what you would usually ask is what happened?
Yeah, what happened?
Just a second, and what did he say to you?
He said that he was having instrument problems with the aircraft and he wasn't able to take off, so he returned the aircraft. At that point in time, I contacted a service center. I had 2 technicians go out and look at the aircraft, see what was wrong. At the time, the technicians found that they...
Don't tell me what they found.
Okay.
You can't tell me what they found. It's hearsay.
They send me pictures of the damage of the propeller.
May I see the photographs? Okay, so that's a fresh damage.
Correct.
Can I scroll this?
Yes, you may.
Or it's just one? Okay, so you have a picture of that. You have a picture of the cone that has a slice in it.
Correct, that's the object he hit. We also have a video showing the plane taxi and hitting the cone at the...
I'd like to see that as well.
Okay.
Okay, let's see what we got.
As you can see where the...
Just one second, Mr. Meyer, is that a fair and accurate representation of where the plane was before you moved it?
It should be on on the far left side of that Learjet.
Okay. Oh. Mr. Meyer, do you see that you went over a cone?
It's interesting. I didn't even notice there was a cone.
You may not notice it, but you see it now.
Yes.
Okay. Your hitting of the cone caused damage to that plane. I mean, you're not talking about flying a 747. You're talking about a little single prop plane. Yeah, me, they like those planes you put together, we used to put together with rubber bands. I wouldn't put my behind in one of those planes for all the money in the world.
Albert Lee claims pilot instructor Ed Meyer is responsible for damage after Ed moved Albert's plane.
Okay.
In all of my years of flying, which is pretty significant, I was an airline pilot too, I've never, ever experienced that in my life.
Okay, but you see it now.
Yes.
It's not an on purpose. It's, you know, that's why they call them accidents. We don't mean for them to happen.
Right.
We don't mean for them to happen, but you do see that the plane did hit a cone.
Right.
Okay, and I have photographs of the cone that has a slice in it, and the same kind of slice from one of the propellers. Now, so that's conceded that Mr. Meyer did, in fact, hit the cone, which in all probability caused damage to the plane, caused damage to the propeller. Now, tell me about your insurance.
The insurance covered the propeller. They covered the teardown of the engine. When something strikes the propeller, they have to tear apart the engine, make sure the components...
Do you have those,
that
paperwork for me? I'd like to see it.
Okay, so here is the insurance-covered portion, and here is my covered portion that I had to come out of pocket to pick up the plane.
Okay.
And I can explain both invoices. And if you flip to the last page, that'll have the total. Insurance covered about 60-something thousand for the propeller and the engine teardown.
Okay, so the damaged propeller, Mr. Williams, causes you to have to take apart the engine, fix the engine if there was damage to the engine. Am I correct?
That's correct. The FAA requires anytime you strike an object with a propeller, the engine has to be inspected in the component parts. So they
component parts of the engine.
Of the damage, potential damage of the engine. Internal damage that could be caused by striking an object.
Okay. The insurance covered how much, sir? Mr. Lee?
It's, sorry, it's on the invoice 60, I think it was 63,000, 64,000. It's on the last page.
The last page shows
a deposit of
$63,000.
Yes, that's it.
The deposit was 40, balance due was 23. Did the insurance company pay the entire 63?
This entire
$63,000. This was what was submitted to them.
Yes.
Okay, now I'd like you to take a look at this, Mr. Meyer. No, I'm going to actually ask Mr. Williams to take a look at this. document. These are the items, Mr. Williams, that Mr. Lee says were uncovered. I would like you to go through all those items and tell me which of those items relate to the engine and which do not.
Okay, is this the total?
Carefully, because I'm going to potentially ask you about each individual thing, because there looks to me like some things that bear no relation to an engine.
Okay, so most of the items that you see that are airworthiness on the airframe are the items that need to be inspected or replaced from the teardown. So your item 1, item 2, 3, 4, item 5, 6, 7, 8. These are all items that the repair shop goes through the engine and assesses whether it needs.
Well, tell me how the brakes would be impacted.
I don't think
impacted by hitting the.
Which invoice?
And I don't know. But how brakes would be impacted by hitting a nose cone.
Brake lining, I don't know what that is.
Okay. Yeah, some of these items, Your Honor, such as one of these items, the brake lines, as you pointed out, is probably not part of the.
Well, that's what I want you to go through, sir.
Okay.
Do you understand? I want you to take a marker, a pen, and circle, because I don't know a whole lot about airplanes, but I know a little bit about airplanes. I know what's routine maintenance and what has to be taken care of, because a plane either falls on its nose or falls on its tail, both of which I've experienced.
Well, this is a small invoice. This is not your. This is a 12.
Mr. Williams, don't ask him. I didn't ask you to have a conference with him.
Okay.
I asked you to look at that. You're the management company. I want you to strike those items that are not related to this accident and go through them very carefully, because.
Can I make a comment?
Okay. Nope.
To you directly.
Nope.
Okay.
Can I ask you something?
Can you ask me something?
Yeah. Well, they should tell you those cones are made of plastic.
I don't care. They're heavy cones. You hit the cone. And the plane flew perfectly fine before you hit the cone. It didn't run after you hit the cone. You don't have to be a genius to figure out the cone caused, your hitting of the cone caused damage to that plane. I mean, you're not talking about flying a 747. You're talking about a little this is a single prop plane?
Right.
Yeah. Me, they're like those planes you put together, we used to put together with rubber bands. I wouldn't put my behind in one of those planes for all the money in the world.
The only items I can see, Your Honor, are 2 items that may not be related to the accident, items 7 and 8.
Okay, may I have that back, please,
Sure.
sir? And you are familiar with planes, sir, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So what you're saying is item.
The circled item.
7 and 8.
Correct.
So we have.
There's a couple of invoices.
We have right and left main gear, which is 143 plus 270 plus 66. What about item 9? Pitch, trim, jab, nut, loose. What is that?
Probably what they do during the inspection and the tear down, they go through the aircraft itself, make sure it's airworthy. So they probably caught another item or 2. You can probably put that on item that's wasn't part of the accident.
The big ticket items are adding up all of these items, Mr. Meyer, that probably have no relation to the accident which you caused.
Correct.
Still bring the total amount to more than this court's jurisdictional limit. Can you tell me, sir, why your insurance, Mr. Williams, let's go back to you. You manage this plane. Can you tell me why Mr. Lee's insurance didn't cover all the damage to the plane?
A lot of the prospective renters or instructors that everybody uses, or we used in this case, carry their own insurance for this type of incident. Their insurance covers basically downtime, loss of operation, or in this case.
You mean Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Would have his own. Do you have your own insurance?
No.
No. Don't you do a check to find out if they have their own insurance before you recommend someone?
He had insurance, but it was lapsed.
If you have insurance that's lapsed, then you have no insurance.
Yeah, that's correct.
So you're lucky that he's not suing you.
Albert Lee is accusing pilot instructor Ed Meyer of hitting a cone and damaging his plane. Ed says Albert was already paid by his insurance company.
Okay, Mr. Williams, you were the one who recommended
That's
Mr.
correct,
Meyer,
we did.
don't you do a check to find out if they have their own insurance before you recommend someone?
He had insurance, but it was lapsed. It
Well,
lapsed.
he didn't have insurance. I get that all the time. If you have insurance that's lapsed, then you have no insurance.
Yeah. As a flight school, our instructors are required to carry the insurance.
Okay, but that didn't happen here.
That's correct.
So you're lucky that he's not suing you because you managed the plane for him. And you recommended him, Mr. Williams, you know. When you have a management company that manages your plane, they're supposed to make certain that if you have a certain kind of plane, that you have pilots certified to fly those kinds of planes. And if they give me a list of pilots and those pilots aren't certified to fly the kind of plane that I might have, then it's the fault of the management company.
In this case here, the plaintiff and the defendant were working together as far as their payment and the fees they were going to charge.
That's okay. They may have been working head to head. I mean, it was Mr. Meyer's fault, but I'm just telling you that Mr. Lee relies on your advice. What business are you in, Mr. Lee?
I do commercial real estate. I sell shopping centers and office buildings.
Okay, that's not his business. That's why he hires you. And if he hires you, he asks you for recommendations as to where to get the plane repaired for an instructor. Now, the fact that he may pay him independently, he's relied on you for information. So I suggest, Mr. Williams, that you tighten up your ship a little bit. Mr. Meyer, you're responsible to the plaintiff for the damage that you caused his plane. Why did you let your insurance lapse?
It had lapsed. I just didn't even realize the fact that it had lapsed. I just realized the fact that when this came about, that's what happened.
Well, when was the last time you paid premiums?
Probably about a year before that.
Anything else you want to tell me, Mr. Meyer? You owe him $10,000. You caused the damage. You have to fix it. Judgment for the plaintiff. We're finished. Thank you.
This court is adjourned.
I understand her point, the fact that what she saw.
I thought she's very fair.
These cones are made out of plastic.
It's hard to believe. It sounds like a gunshot when he hit the cone and triggered several warnings. And for him to say he had no idea, it's a little bit hard to believe.
They don't have much weight to them.
With the loud bang after you hit it, it's quite obvious that you should have stopped and shut down and inspect the damage.
There normally is never a cone at the 12 o'clock position. They're at the left side and the right side.
They place cones all the way around the aircraft, and it's part of your responsibility as a pilot in command to do a walk around pre-flight, make sure there's no object in front of your aircraft.
When I taxied out halfway down, that's when I recognized there was an ICAS message that came on.
I finally got it back, and no more student pilots, so won't let any CFIs fly for a while.
You know what I thought about in this case, Sarah? That lay people have to look at something, lay people, and while I'm a judge and have certain expertise, I have no expertise in reading slips that show what's been done on a car or an airplane or a train or a boat.
But we have common sense.
But we have common sense. And your brakes are not part of an engine. You know, you have an engine job, and then you have a brake job, and you have a...
I saw where you were going.
different kind. And, you know, if you have an accident that impacts on the right driver's door, if you put in a new wheel casing in the left rear door, well, that has nothing to do with an accident.
Probably just an oversight. He did state that those two items were not part of, you know.
He did.
He did at the end, but it just feels a little uneasy when they try and slip those things in there, that just common sense doesn't ring true, that it comes from the same instinct.
You know, front, back, you know, the head of a horse, the tail of a horse, it doesn't fit in. And there's really no difference between not having insurance when you're driving a car and not having insurance as a flight instructor. Yeah, that's pretty serious.
I would think there would be a more rigorous check on that before you get behind an aircraft, the wheel of an aircraft.
Absolutely. You would think that there would be. Yeah. There's a flaw in the system someplace. Okay, I'm glad nobody was hurt.
Is suing Joseph Simonet for car damage after Joseph's 15-year-old son hit Carrie's vehicle.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Hello, Judge.
Good morning.
Case 2138, Cargill versus Simonet.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Cargill, you and the defendant's son had an accident while you were driving your car, and Mr. Simonet's son was driving his electric scooter.
It was like a skateboard, a one-wheel skateboard.
Tell me your name.
Jacob Simonet.
Describe this vehicle that you were riding on?
It's got 2 spaces for your feet. Has one in the back, one in the front.
No, try to look at me. I'm trying to see you.
Oh.
Trying
There's
to
one in the
go
back,
like this.
one in the front, and then there's a big wheel in the center. And you put your feet on either side, and then it balances, and you ride it kind of like a skateboard.
Oh, I actually
had a
have
feeling you
picture
might
of
need it.
myself riding on one of those for about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
We bought it for one of my grandchildren years ago, but it's motorized.
Yes.
It has a motor.
It's electric.
And how fast does it go?
Tops out at about 17 miles an hour.
17.
Yes.
That's pretty fast. Are you required to drive that on the street where pedestrians walk or where cars ride?
On the sidewalk with the pedestrians.
Sidewalk.
Yes.
Do you drive it on the sidewalk?
Yes, I do.
Do you ever drive it in the street?
I do not.
Now you're going to tell me what happened on the date of this incident, which was August 17th.
This year, yes.
Okay.
Yes, I was going south after work, and I was going to crossing through the intersection. I had the green light.
Is there a chart?
Yes. Yes.
I'd like to see it.
Yeah, I was crossing the intersection.
You're the blue car.
I'm the blue car. And I had the green, it was going, and Jacob had cut through on the red into the green and slammed into the side of my car. He had cut through the intersection.
So he was in the street where the cars travel?
Yes.
Not on the sidewalk?
Right. He was not in the walkway.
Okay. Jacob, I want you to walk up to that sign and show me where you were when you and the plaintiff collided.
I was about right here.
You were in a crosswalk?
Yeah, I was in the crosswalk coming through and about
Okay,
right.
is that what, Jacob, is that what the police report is going to indicate? That you were in the crosswalk?
I don't know.
Well, I assume that there is a police report. Is that correct? Police report's going to tell me where the debris was, I assume. The debris is either going to be in a crosswalk or it's going to be in the street. Where do you think it's going to be?
Some of it was in the street.
Show me the street that you're talking about.
About like right
No,
here.
put your finger on it. Don't go around where it's
About right here.
right there. That would be in the middle, right?
Mm-hmm.
That would be in the middle of the street where the cars travel, not in the crosswalk.
Yeah.
Yes. It's easy.
Sure.
How old is he?
15.
15. I've had a whole bunch of those who are 15. You know when they're telling a fib?
How?
When their mouths are moving.
He's a pretty good kid.
All of my kids are pretty good kids. But you can always
Figure
tell.
it out, huh?
Yeah, you can usually tell. Is this your first only?
Both, first and only.
First and only. Oh, well, she probably had some experience with that anyway.
A little bit.
A little bit. Okay, and this happened at what time during the day?
I believe it was about 4, a little after 4, 4:30.
So it was light out.
Yes.
You collided with her car on the driver's side.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, on the door of the driver's side.
The fender.
Fender.
Yes.
Side fender?
Yes, side fender.
Okay. Not the front of the car.
The front fender of the car.
Front fender of the car on the side. I'm talking about it was the side or the front?
The side.
Side. So you collided with her.
Yes.
Because cars don't move sideways.
Yes.
He could have been quite seriously injured.
Yes, he could. He hit the side of the car and he flew up onto the hood and then kind of rolled across the hood, hit my windshield, and then fell onto the ground. And when I stopped, he jumped up, appeared at my window, and apologized, and then asked me if I was okay.
What did he say?
Just said he was sorry. And then he asked me if I was okay. And then I asked him if he was okay. And then he asked me if I was okay. And it went back
So
and
far,
forth
is that
a little
right?
bit.
Yes.
Okay.
And which I was very impressed by, that he was more worried about me than anything else. I moved my car out of the road, onto the side of the road. There was an EMT that was across the street from us, and he came over and assessed him if there was any more damage. He got some road rash and things like that, but he was not seriously hurt, at least that we noticed at the time.
Do you have the police report?
I do.
I'd like to see it, please, Kevin. Thank you.
You're welcome.
One witness said that he was right next to you and that you went past him and that the light was red. His light was red, which is why he was stopped. That's what I'm reading. He did say that his light was red when the kid initially passed in front of him. Did you get a copy of this police report?
I've seen it, yes.
Explain to me, would you put on this again and leave that one on because that's the version that I believe. Would you walk over there and explain to me what cut the corner was, what you were doing, talks about cutting the corners. So I want you to understand, I believe that, based upon what I'm reading here, I believe that.
Mm-hmm.
So now I want you to show me how you cut the corner.
So I was coming to this one, and I went through, and instead of going here and just going through the sidewalk, I just went like around here and through this crosswalk.
What's cut the corner?
Cut the corner here, right there.
You mean just that little space is what you're talking about? You cut the corner?
Yeah, I went from about...
I want you to understand, I believe that you were in the street. I believe you were in the street, not in a crosswalk. So let's run through that again. Would you please show me what cut the corner was?
Went through here, and I came here, and I cut here. So right there, I cut the corner.
He is a nice boy, Mr. Simonette.
Thank you.
You know what my father told me when he gave me my first car? I think I was 17, but it was like a tank. He said, because if you get in an accident, I want you to be surrounded by 4,000 pounds of steel.
And later today,
Your claim is that you won a whole bunch of money in some gambling thing. I just want you to tell me how much you won.
Before taxes or after?
Both.
Carrie Cargill claims Joseph Simonette owes for damage after his 15-year-old son hit Carrie's car while riding an electric skateboard.
Okay. The police determined that based upon the eyewitness testimony that the pedestrian, Jacob, is at fault and believed to have crossed the intersection before having the right-of-way. The vehicle had the green light. In any event, do you have photographs of your car? This happened in August, and you were called to the scene by your son, is that right?
Correct.
And you got there, you know that he was a little banged up, but thankfully...
He was in an ambulance when I arrived, but shortly after, yes, he did walk out of the ambulance and suffered some injuries, which I have pictures of if you'd like to see them.
I'm sure he was banged up. He had bruises from falling off the...
From being launched from the vehicle after the collision, correct.
Okay. You know, he was really lucky that she wasn't going faster.
Correct. Could have been much worse. We were
Could have been much
thankful for his health and the outcome of the incident.
You're right. Okay, can I see an estimate to fix your car, please? Thank you.
You're welcome.
What kind of a car do you have?
A 2015 Equinox Chevy?
You had full coverage on the car, is that right?
Yes.
But with a $1,000 deductible.
Yes.
So if you put this through to your insurance, you have a $1,000 deductible.
Yes.
Right? Anything else you want to tell me, Jacob?
Nope.
Do you still ride one of those things?
It's broken. I didn't get a new one, no.
It was destroyed in the accident.
You know what my father told me when he gave me my first car? I think I was 17. He bought me the oldest, ugliest car, but it was like a tank. All my other friends were getting these nice, cute little cars, and this one was like an old person's tank Cadillac or something. You know, we're talking 50 years ago. And I said, why do I have to have this car? Everybody else has cute cars. He said, because if you get in an accident, I want you to be surrounded by 4,000 pounds of steel. That's pretty much the lesson that I've sent out there. 4,000 pounds of steel. One and only, surrounded by lots of steel. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,000. Thank you, we're finished.
This court is adjourned.
Overall, I'm happy.
She had some fault due to hitting a pedestrian in a crosswalk.
It was surreal, like out of the movies.
Your heart stops, and all you can do is look for the car keys and panic and get there as fast as you can.
I am so glad that he was okay.
I remember just flying through the air, and then I was on the ground, and I got right up.
Be very careful.
Count your blessings and enjoy every moment that you have, because things could change in an instant.
I know these electric scooters and skateboards are very popular, but even before this case, I tried to look up any rules, laws, regulations. There are a few for electric motorbikes and things like that, but far fewer than I would expect for a machine that can go up to 17 miles an hour when you're 15.
I think that you're right. I think that since those things have become so popular, they really have to be enforced rules. And parents, and this is a very nice father and son, but I've seen kids weave in and out of cars. It always looked like an accident waiting to happen.
Yeah. And this one could have ended in a real tragedy.
He was lucky, and his father knew he was lucky.
Yeah.
Case 21-24, McPherson versus Hall. All parties, please step forward.
Gerald McPherson is suing his ex-girlfriend, Natasha Hall, for money she received during their relationship.
Mr. McPherson,
Yes.
how old are you, sir?
40.
What kind of work do you do?
Home care aid?
Independent, or do you work for a company?
Home care aid agency.
For an agency?
Yes.
How long have you been working for them?
About a year now, but I've been doing home care for about 3 years.
Prior to working for them the past year, and you're still working for them, is that right? Was there a period of time when you were unemployed?
Not more than maybe 3 weeks, but since I know Ms. Hall...
No, I don't want to know about Ms. Hall.
No, I'm telling you my employments that since I've lived in her residence, I've always worked. I worked at the zoo, Census Bureau.
Don't try to think ahead of me.
Okay.
There was a period of time in 2020, according to you, that you became homeless and were living in a shelter.
Yeah, that...
And that was in what month in 2020?
In June. So if I can explain the situation. I was living in a house that a slumlord wasn't doing the repairs. So I ended up forcing his hand, him selling the property, and the new landlord and my...
Could you look at me when you're talking?
I'm sorry. The new landlord and my other ex, they kept the property. I moved out. I went to a shelter because I didn't want nothing to do with her or the...
You're talking about her?
No, ma'am.
Well, then don't keep pointing to her. I'm asking you...
I'm just pointing in general. I'm not pointing at her.
You actually pointed
I'm sorry.
to her. When you were in the shelter, were you employed?
Yes, for the Census Bureau,
Okay.
doing the census. I was actually out in the field knocking on doors. I was an enumerator.
So you were not working in home health care, you were a census taker?
At that time, yes.
And did you have a child living with you?
Yes, well, not in the shelter, no. I could not have my daughter in the shelter.
How old is your daughter?
10.
And where is her mother?
She's deceased.
Where was your daughter living when you were in the shelter?
With my mother.
Is she living with you now?
She's been with me since June.
In a new apartment?
Yes, I moved in August 1st.
She goes to school from your apartment?
Yes.
Okay. In 2020, you became acquainted with Miss Hall, and there came a time shortly thereafter, uncross your arms, and there came a point shortly thereafter when you moved into her home.
In August, yes.
Of 2020. And you remained in her home until what month and year?
August of 2022.
And in what month and year did you regain custody of your daughter?
June of 2022.
So there was a period of 2 months when you and your daughter lived in Miss Hall's home.
You could say that, but...
Well, I'm saying that because I just asked you a question about timeline.
No, because me and Miss Hall was going through our dispute about this money, my daughter was staying with my grandma. I only brought my daughter there on certain occasions.
When I say you regained custody of your daughter, was that a court order?
Yes, I have it right here.
Just a second. Was the child removed by court order from your custody?
It was removed because the house...
Don't tell me because.
Yes,
it was yes.
Yes.
I have lots of things to do today.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Child was removed from your custody.
Because I didn't have nowhere to live at the time.
Was the child removed from your custody before you moved into the shelter?
She was removed because I was in the shelter.
Did you take her to the shelter?
No, I was not allowed to because there's no men.
So at that time,
female
did she go and live with your mother?
Of course.
Was that by court order?
No, it was
brought her to your mother.
Yes.
May I see the court order that involves custody, please? I'm not getting an answer.
This is the court order, and this is these two forms. Now, that court order is the current.
Shh. Okay, so the child was placed with the Commissioner of Social Services in Pennsylvania. And the child was placed in kinship foster care, which is a program that I am very familiar with the child's paternal grandmother. So in June of this year, the child was returned to your custody. At some point in August of this year is when you and the defendants separated and you left the house. This is your claim. Your claim is that you won a whole bunch of money in some gambling thing. What kind of gambling thing? I don't want to go back to the year, Gimel, sir. All I want you to do is tell me how much rent you were paying her.
To be honest, I had to...
I don't know. I want you to be dishonest with me.
Gerald McPherson claims his ex-girlfriend, Natasha Hall, wrongfully spent the money he gave her for rent.
Your claim is that you won a whole bunch of money in some gambling thing. What kind of gambling thing? I want you to look at me when you talk, not at the papers.
No, I was going to...
In what kind of gambling thing did you win money?
I betted on 25 games.
What 25 games?
NBA, college, hockey.
Okay, and you bet where?
On FanDuel. It's an app called FanDuel.
Okay, and you won?
Yes.
I don't understand the whole thing. I don't want to learn the whole thing. I don't care about the whole thing. I just want you to tell me how much you won. Before taxes or after? Both. Okay, $36,742, and after taxes, $26,889. On what date? So I won the bet on the 28th. It came into my account. 28th of what? January. Of what year? This year. And you had been living with Miss Hall for 2 years? Prior, yes. Okay, and you were working according to you all of that time? Yes. Okay, good. Were you paying any rent to Miss Hall? I have receipts. Yes, I want to see those. How much rent were you paying? So when I met Miss Hall... I don't want to go back to the year, Gimmel, sir. All I want you to do is tell me how much rent you were paying her. To be honest, I had to pay half her rent. I don't know. I want you to be dishonest with me. Half her rent is like $425, and she had me pay half the gas and half the electric and half the cable. Her rent was $425? No, it was $850. I had to split it. We're paying half and half. Miss Hall? Yes, ma'am. What kind of work do you do? I do customer service. And who else lives in the apartment with you? My children. How old are they? 14 and 13. How large is the apartment? It's a 2-bedroom. And the total rent is $850? Yes, ma'am. There's no subsidy involved? No subsidy at all. Okay. And you have a lease? Yes, ma'am. How much did you charge, if anything, Mr. McPherson as rent? $425. Well, that doesn't quite sound fair, does it? Did she make a figure with you of $425? I paid more than that. I paid $425. That's half of the rent. I paid half of the electric and half of the internet bill. There are 4 people in the house? Yes. Right? Why is he paying for... Only 2 people. Why was he paying for half the rent? Oh, my children don't work, and his child didn't work either. His child wasn't with you? The child came with us in June, but she had visitations on weekends. I don't care if she has visitations. Your children live with you. Yes. They don't have to work. They're your children. They're not his responsibility. Okay, I just want to know where everybody's head is at. There came a point, Miss Hall, when Mr. McPherson gave you $6,000 in cash. No, not in cash. Check. No, both of them was wired. One was directly wired into our Bank of America account. What? Just a second. When? The first transaction was on January 31st. The second transaction... January 31st of? This year. And the second transaction was the next day, February 1st. $12,000 total. Do you acknowledge, Miss Hall, receiving $12,000 in your account from Mr. McPherson, or do I have to look at his records? I do not acknowledge. He gave me $6,000 and $4,500. $6,000 and $4,500, Mr. McPherson. Does that sound right? No, it's not right, and I'm going to show you. Let me see your bank record. All right, hey, sir. Let us assume that it's $6,000 and $4,500 that he gave you in this year, 2022. Yes. Is that correct? Okay. Let us assume for the moment that you're correct, because you're suing for $6,000. Yes. Right? Yeah, because the first initial $6,000 was 8 months' rent. That I'm not. Let us assume that you are correct, that he gave you $6,000 and $4,500. I'm taking you at face value in January and February of 2022. Yes, ma'am. What was the money for? That he gave me? Yes. The 2 different amounts of money. Yes. There's a $6,000 and a $4,500. $4,500 was for me to pay my car note off. And hey, just a second. Go ahead. Why would he pay your car note off? He said he wanted to. Oh, no. That's ridiculous. Miss Hall, let me just check. Can I say something? No. He even wrote that on there for your car note. No, you said in January he won a bet and cashed it out. A few days later, he gave me money via Cash App to catch up on his rent and as a thank you for helping him out. I don't see anything here about gift for a car note in your answer. So he gave me the money for the car note, and as far as the Cash App money, he gave me money lots of times. So, yes. No, I'm talking about the $6,000, madam. Yes. Let us assume he gave you $4,500 to pay off your car note. That's what you said. Correct. What's the $6,000 for? The $6,000 was for us to move. For who to move? Me and him. Show me. The $6,000? Yeah, show me that there's proof. He says he gave you the money according to his complaint to hold for him. Yes. Shh. Just a second. Yeah, February 3rd, he gave you $6,000. This just says he gave it to you. Yes. And
And he told me to hold it so we can move.
Well, you didn't move.
No,
you didn't. Shh. He told you to hold it for him so that you could all move.
No.
So who could move?
So me and him and our children could move.
Well, that's what I just said.
I apologize.
So that we can move.
Correct.
But you didn't move together.
Correct.
So you have to give him his money back. That's simple. Just a second. That's simple. If you say he gave you the money so that the two of you could move and that event never took place, but he in fact moved out, you owe him $6,000.
But then he agreed.
Just a second. That's an easy. Okay. Do I have to deal with anything else? Money for lost wages, rent, utilities? Forget it. He paid all of that with the $4,500 when he paid off your car note. Come on, let's get it together. Lost wages. What are the lost wages for?
But then I had to take off from work because of the PFA, and I had to take off from work to go file out the court and things like that. But in the midst of him saying the $6,000, he didn't pay rent. He didn't pay all of his rent.
He paid off your car note. You owe him $6,000. Your counterclaim's dismissed. We're finished. Thank you very much.
Okay.
This court is adjourned.
Well, I don't agree with the judge's decision. I don't think I owe him the money.
That's what women do.
Because he gave me a gift and he didn't pay rent.
I also spent $2 grand on her in gifts.
What's done is done.
I'm taking a break from women for quite some time now.
So I'm glad that the plaintiff's daughter didn't have to go into the larger foster care system and was able to stay with plaintiff's mother. But I was curious that if this was a temporary slip up and he wasn't going to be permanently without housing, why wouldn't he go with his daughter to his mother's house? I was surprised you didn't ask him that question.
You're right. You're right. That's a curious question.
To me, it just seemed like it might have been a better situation to crash at your mom's house with your daughter
With
for
your
a while,
daughter?
but
I'm not sure whether I have that whole story because they continued the child in care for a period of time, at least for almost 2 years, because he didn't have custody of her while he was living with the defendant.
well, one easy part of the case was that he was owed his $6,000 back.
That's
all we had to deal with.
Yeah, that was easy. Once she got her hands on that $6,000 and he was no longer in the picture, it was hard for her to give up.
Is suing her ex-boyfriend's brother, Cleefers McCowan Jr., for personal property and filing a false police report.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Case 2143, Simpsons versus McCowan Jr.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Miss Simpson, you lived with Mr. McGowan for, looks like 7 years is what you said.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. It was off and on.
What do you mean off and on?
Well, I had another residence as well.
Okay.
And
it's going to get more complicated, I see, than less complicated. You lived off and on, according to you, with the defendant's brother, who is now deceased. Yeah. It is your claim at one point in your papers that you and the defendant's brother were married.
Yes, ma'am.
He passed away.
Yes, ma'am.
And it is your claim that the defendant owes you money. He was the executor of the estate, and he owes you money for property that he took from the house and for filing a false police report against you, I assume indicating that you took things from the house.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. McGowan says that you and his brother were never married, while he indicates in his papers there might have been some sort of ceremony of marriage.
Yes.
That his brother somehow must have told him that he never filed the marriage license, so the marriage was never valid.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, let's go to that for a moment.
Yeah.
Yes, it's sort of curious and takes me back to law school days. And believe me, that really tests my memory. Were you at the ceremony where your brother married the plaintiff?
No, ma'am, I was not.
When did your brother tell you that there was a marriage ceremony?
I probably heard it just throughout life.
You mean throughout life for how long?
From the time that he had any dealings with her.
So about 7 years ago?
Yes, ma'am.
So you asked your brother whether he was married?
Yes.
How long ago was this?
I would say 4 years ago.
Okay, so 4 years ago, you say to your brother, I understand that you, what's your first name?
Mona.
Mona got married.
Well, so he gave me an insurance document, and I was like, wow, what's going on? What about all this?
He gave you an insurance document that said what?
From the VA indicating that I was going to be the person that gets the money. upon if he demise.
If he died,
Right. And
you had a VA insurance policy
Yes, ma'am.
with you as the beneficiary.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and so he showed you the insurance policy.
Well, he sent it to me in the mail.
Okay, and?
Email or electronic. And so I said, wow, what's going on? So then I started to ask different questions, and he said, well, don't worry about that. We're not legally married.
No, you have to tell me. I said to him.
I said to him, so doesn't your wife
Isn't she the
get
beneficiary?
this? I don't want to be involved in all this.
Right.
And he said, I am not married. We went through a ceremony, and you have 10 days to file the
marriage license.
The marriage license in Las Vegas.
Okay.
To solidify the marriage. And then he said, I never filed it. We are not married.
May I?
Just a second. Did your brother tell you that he had ever told Ms. Simpson that he never filed the marriage license?
No, we never had that conversation.
Okay, well, because you say in your answer, sir, that my brother was too smart for that, he never mailed in the license.
Well, he told me because there was a problem between these two. And so we talked about that, and he said, no, I'm not married to her. And he said, you have to file the document, and I never filed the document. And I have a copy of that right here.
Ms. Simpson,
yes, ma'am.
Tell me when this ceremony took place in Las Vegas.
April 2013.
Did you travel there with Mr. McGowan?
Yes, ma'am. We moved to Vegas together.
Who was at the ceremony?
It was no ceremony. What happened was I don't know what this is. What happened was we went to the Justice of the Peace. And the 10 days is not acronym.
No, don't.
I apologize.
Don't tell me.
We had 1 year to go to like a pastor or minister or something like that because we just went to the Justice of the Peace in Vegas. They give you a year to do it, whereas it's, I guess, what I think the term is officiant or something. Officiant has to do it so you can become married permanently.
So you knew that you were not legally married?
Well, it was legal, but it would be official if you don't do another step within a year. And
I understand that, but you never did the other step.
We didn't, only because he was sick, ma'am.
I don't care what the reason was. I don't care if he was watching Yellowstone or because it doesn't matter why.
I respect that.
What? You can get hooked on that.
No, yeah.
I understand.
So
no,
I don't care what the reason is. You knew that your marriage, because it wasn't confirmed, according to you, within a year that you weren't legally married.
Yes, ma'am. And that
okay, just a second. That's all I want to know. That makes my life much easier. Because, Mr. McGowan, I want you to listen to me very carefully. Under what you told me, under the events that you told me, you see, you should have kept your mouth shut.
No, it's okay.
No.
It's going to be okay in the end. It's going to make a lot of sense in the end.
No, I understand that it's going to make a lot of sense to me. We're going to follow the money. But I just want to tell you and the people who are watching this that when I thought about your answer, that you said your brother was too smart and didn't file the necessary document within 10 days, my view of that scenario was that she could still consider herself his wife. Because if he fraudulently, in an attempt to deceive her, didn't mail the marriage license in, she would be the beneficiary. I'm just letting you know that. You understand what I just said?
Yes, ma'am.
Because he committed a fraud on her. He would have committed a fraud, your brother, on her into leading her to believe that they were a married couple and they had the responsibilities and the benefits of a married couple. But she says she volunteered that she knew they weren't married.
Yeah.
So I don't even have to address that.
And it's okay.
Just a second. I know where I'm coming from.
Okay.
So, Mr. McGowan, the person that you were involved in for a period of years, on and off, you had your own place, but he was ill for a certain period of time. Was your brother ill?
No, ma'am.
No. Just a second. He says no. You say he was ill for a great portion of that time. Shh. Just a second. For a great portion of that time, and that you were his caregiver.
Yes, ma'am.
And you were paid as his caregiver by the government.
The VA, yes, ma'am.
By the VA, to be his caregiver.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, that would be inconsistent with being his wife, to be his caregiver. Because if you're a wife, you don't get benefits from the VA. If you are a non-relative and caring for somebody who requires assistance, you may get assistance. And how much was the VA? Just answer my question.
Yes,
this is not my first rodeo.
Okay, I understand.
How much was the VA paying you a month to take care of, what was your brother's first name?
Marcus.
How much were you being paid to take care of Marcus? Because you say that one check, you didn't get because of him. It's part of your lawsuit, so you know exactly how much you were paid.
Ma'am.
How much?
$2,057.55.
A month.
Yes,
and when
ma'am.
did you start collecting that?
2014.
Woo! You are a legal stranger, so you must have filled out forms to say that you were married.
No, I was considered a family member. I was no longer considered the wife, but I was considered...
Well, you're not no longer. You were never his wife.
Ramona Simpson claims her ex-boyfriend's brother, Cleefers McCowan Jr., threw out her personal belongings. Cleefers is countersuing for damage and stolen property.
Okay, so there was a reason why you didn't continue to solemnize the marriage ceremony that you went through in 2013, because you started to collect $2,000 a month from the VA in 2014 that you couldn't have collected were you his wife. That's a yes.
No, it isn't, ma'am. Receiving the benefits from the VA, you have to be a family member. You have to be related to that person in order to get this stipend pay. It wasn't a regular VA payment, and it's for relatives. You have to be a relative for that veteran.
What are you getting? Oh,
yes, it's true.
Just to check that,
Full
Sarah.
stipend pay for the VA. Because we're both disabled veterans. It's not like I just had to do this. I loved him, and I cared for him, and he was sick the day I met him.
Just a minute, you both disabled veterans?
Well, my disability was not as crucial as his was.
How much do you collect?
I very minimum, because
Which I asked a question. That's a very minimum.
Yes.
It's not a number.
Yes, it's $300 and some change. But the thing is, Your Honor, may I speak, please? He was sick from the day that I met him, and I was taking care of him prior for that. This was his idea, because he was familiar with the veterans and the system. This was his idea that we can receive funds, and it stayed right in the household. We were living together. It was stayed in the household, and that's okay with them.
I thought you told me a moment ago that you had your own place.
No, not then, ma'am. Not then, when we moved back from Vegas, because we stayed in Vegas for approximately 3 years. When we moved back from Vegas, he had purchased a home and everything, and it was supposed to be okay. We were going to be together. But he started living another alternate life, which he was very familiar with, because he's introduced him to so many people. I don't even care about that. I still continue to take care of Marcus. It was no longer a romantic situation.
Now you still continue. You had your own place.
I lived both places, because he needed me more there than he did when we was living together.
What kind of alternative lifestyle was he doing that he needed you there part-time?
He was seeing other people and
he was
stuff like
seeing
that.
women.
Pardon me?
He was seeing other women.
He was seeing other people, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so he was seeing other people. But you, let me finish.
Yes, ma'am.
But you continued to receive the $2,057. You knew you weren't married. That money was coming directly to you. It wasn't coming to him.
Well,
it was coming to you. At what address?
He was giving me a portion from his bank account, and then when we discontinued everything, there was nothing physical. Then I was receiving my full allotment at that point, but I was still taking care of him, taking him to the VA, taking him to the hospital.
Wait just a second. I don't care. Don't go like this and like this. He's a legal stranger to you, and you're getting $2,000 a month to take him to the VA.
Ma'am, he was not a legal stranger.
He was a legal stranger to you. Legal. He was not your mother, father, brother, sister, or husband.
Ma'am, he was a dear friend of me. He continued to be a friend, honestly.
Well,
and he knows that. We went to several places together.
I'm setting up for myself what is the actuality of the situation. Now, I understand that I was really not prepared for this scenario. I was prepared for somebody, quite frankly, Miss Simpson, who had been defrauded by his deceased brother into believing they were married. She took care of him when he was sick. And all of a sudden, now that he's deceased, his brother comes in, kicks her out of the house, and takes all of his property. That's the scenario. But now I understand that that is not the case, that you knew you weren't married, that for 8 years you collected $2,000 a month for taking him to the doctor's offices, to the vet, to taking care of him in the house. But you understood that he was seeing other people, that you didn't have an exclusive relationship. Now I understand it. And you did receive a certain benefit from that, because when you moved back from Vegas, you went to your own place because he was having an alternative life that had nothing to do with you. At that point, was the money going to his bank account or yours?
It was going to his bank account, ma'am.
Okay. Well, you say that he notified the government Part of your lawsuit is for 1 month's check that you say, or 2 months that you didn't get. And you say you didn't get it because he notified the VA or somebody notified the VA. I don't care who notified the VA. What I want to know is, with those checks immediately preceding Mr. McGowan's death, going into his bank account or yours that he had?
His. It was going into Marcus's bank account.
Okay, and he was giving you money from that bank account?
Prior to his death, yes, ma'am.
Right up to the time he got sick and died?
Yeah.
Okay,
yes,
and how much would he give you?
He would have given me $2,057. $2,000.
All right.
No,
okay,
you mean total?
No,
I'm sorry.
No, I get it. It was not what I thought, but I get it.
Ma'am, may I
okay,
please
money owed for the return of property. What property?
The property, which is my funds. I have jewelry that was missing and clothing that I never received because he kicked out his niece and boarded up the house.
Just a second. Was your brother taken to the hospital?
Yes, ma'am.
On what date?
28th of August, 2021.
Okay.
He was nowhere to be found.
Just what?
He wasn't around.
Just a second.
I did that.
Just a second. Did you take him to the hospital?
I had his daughter to call an ambulance. I got to Marcus's house and I followed him to the hospital. Yes, ma'am.
Hey, well, you want to just answer my question? I actually understand the whole scenario. You understand that I do understand the money part. I get it. So when you say his daughter called the ambulance and you got over there from your house?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and who do you live with there?
My daughter and my son.
And in whose name is the lease?
My daughters, my son, and myself.
So all three are on the lease?
Yes, ma'am.
And how long have you had a lease at that address?
2017.
Okay, so we're talking about 5 years that you've had an alternative address. You have an answer for me?
There is a Veterans Affairs program of comprehensive assistance for family caregivers. It says $2,800 a month, but based on a fee schedule that can change. So the $2,057 fits within the range.
And does it define family members?
It doesn't define the family caregiver, only that the VA may appoint someone who's part of the primary family caregivers to the veteran, but it doesn't identify who qualifies as a family caregiver.
As a family caregiver. And that's the act that you were under. But you were not a member of his family.
Yes, ma'am.
You were not a member of his family.
Well,
not a well. Not a well. This is not a well. You're living with your daughter, your son, on a lease since 2017. You know he's got an alternative lifestyle that has absolutely nothing to do with you. He was giving you the $2,000 a month. I don't know why. I don't even have to get into that.
But you were not that individual.
But you were not a family member. If this is for family,
it does go to the veteran to then give the family caregiver, though.
Okay, but you are a legal stranger to him. So you must have filled out forms to say that you were married.
No, it's up to that. It's up to that individual, the veteran, and I know how the procedure goes. It's up to that individual. I was considered a family member. I was no longer considered the wife, but I was considered.
Well, you're not no longer. You were never his wife. So if he filled out a form and
I'm okay with that, ma'am, because I could have.
Okay, so he had the right. You were never his wife. He had the right to board up the house, whichever it is, and you weren't living there for 5 years. You had a place. So if you had clothes there and your jewelry, what were your clothes and your jewelry there? If he was fooling around with other women, why would you leave your clothes and your jewelry in the house?
Okay, ma'am. The thing is, no one has came to the home as another woman in that home. I was always there. He has no proof of evidence that I was not there. So basically, I had their clothes there because I stayed there. I lived there.
Forget it. You were more than compensated with $2,000 a month. What's next? I don't believe that you leave any valuable jewelry at his house.
I was there most of the time, honestly.
You don't need valuable jewelry if you're taking care of a sick person.
Ramona Simpson is accusing defendant Cleefers McCowan Jr. of throwing out her personal belongings.
Okay. Do you have any of her property?
No, ma'am.
Did you dispose of any of her property?
I didn't. She had no property
Just
there.
a second. I don't believe she had any property there either. Anything of value.
And I did.
Okay.
Can I?
Excuse me.
I did find what the VA considers a caregiver. So if you're a spouse, son, daughter, parent, step-family member, or extended family member of a veteran, or if you live full-time with them, or if you're willing to live full-time with them if they designate you as the family caregiver.
So technically,
if you're willing to live with the veteran full-time, you could be qualified as a family caregiver, but it's up to the veteran to declare their own family caregiver.
If you live there full-time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But she stated if you were willing to, and I was always willing to.
Okay,
And because
good. I don't feel as if you were shortchanged, madam, at all. And I don't believe that you had anything of value in the house. So your case is dismissed. Now we're going to get to the second part of your claim. You say she took property from the house?
Yes, ma'am.
What property?
She took jewelry, guns.
What jewelry?
Chains, rings, cufflinks.
Show me.
Entire.
Show me. How am I going to figure that out? You have photographs of things?
Yes, I have some photographs here.
This is so sad.
So sad. You have to put a period and end it. You had a good thing going for 9 years.
Ma'am, the money was paid in the arrears, first of all. So me not getting paid for, and this is really not a big issue to me, what he's saying, because they're all lies, and I'll tell you the truth.
Just say, I'm not saying anything, madam. All I'm saying is you have no case, because I don't believe that somebody who lived in a lifestyle, as you've described, as you've described to me, which is you have your own home, where you're on a lease since 2017, where you said to me he had an alternative lifestyle, but I still took him to his VA appointments. I took him, and I was his caregiver, but I lived with my daughter and my son. I don't believe that you leave any valuable jewelry at his house.
I was there most of the time, honestly.
You don't need valuable jewelry if you're taking care of a sick person.
But
Can I see?
I was stating we're also friends, ma'am.
I've decided your case.
I respect that.
This is just what had happened to looking for everything that was taken in there.
I don't care. Who cares? What are you showing me? You're showing me that the place is a mess, that somebody went through it?
I'm showing you
I
what.
don't care.
Okay.
I don't care. Prior to his death, when had you seen your brother last?
I had seen him about 5 days prior to that.
You live close by?
I was living in San Diego at the time, and he lived in Highland, which is 79 miles up the 15 freeway.
Okay, so 5 days prior to the 5 days prior that you saw your brother, when had you seen him before?
We see each other quite frequently. We have family barbecues, this, that, and the other. I'm retired. I go.
Okay, would you return these to him? These don't show me any jewelry.
Okay.
It shows me that the house looked like it was picked through.
Okay. Thank you.
What else?
So quite frequently.
That's it. Did you get a VA benefit from your brother for his insurance?
From the life insurance policy.
Yeah, that's from the VA.
Yes, ma'am.
And how much did you receive?
$2,600.
Who paid for his funeral?
I did.
How much was that?
$1,100 or $1,200.
So you took some of the insurance money and paid for it?
Yes.
Did he have any other valuable asset?
He had quite a bit of stuff. It's in probate as we speak.
Oh, so case is in probate
It's in probate right now as we speak.
Oh, great. So I don't have to deal with it. Your case is dismissed. We're done. Thank you.
This court is adjourned.
You know what? I have a lot of respect for the judge, but she didn't listen to me.
Well, I'm happy that the judge made the decision that she made.
He's a habitual liar.
Thief. My brother died, and within a half a day went over and burglarized the house.
This is something that he can laugh about, and he's going to go and tell the whole world that I'm still a liar. I'm still a this, that, and the other.
There is quite a bit of items that belong to me that this person stole.
That you can love someone and not be married to them. You can help someone and not be married to them and making love to them. I was genuinely there to help Marcus because I love Marcus.
The devil. I don't want the devil, the devil.
He barred me from the funeral. I didn't fight it because the respect I have for his family and for Marcus. I could have went there. No. I said, you know what? I won't be there.
I hope that she crawls back in the rat hole she came out of and does whatever she does.
You know what was interesting in that case, Sarah? When I read the complaint and the answer, I had a whole different vision.
Me too.
Of what the arrangement was. And based upon what the defendant wrote in his answer, that his brother, with regard to the marriage, to his brother telling him, I'm too smart, I didn't mail in the papers.
Read like fraud a little bit.
Right.
But she was in on it. She knew. She didn't complete the steps.
She didn't complete the step for a different reason, but she knew
that they weren't legally married.
That they weren't legally
married.
Which
changes the whole game from a legal perspective.
Right. Certainly the fact that the case is currently in probate made my life a lot easier. Anyway, it should be a warning signal when you get married out there, folks, and you have a marriage license, because I performed enough weddings to know you have to seal it, sign it, put a stamp on it, and usually put it in the mail within 3 days of the ceremony. So brides and grooms, make sure you put it in the mail together.